I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight to participate in the political process. I would like to ask everyone at this time to turn off your cell phones or silence them so there are no interruptions. And during the forum, there should be no questions, statements, or heckling or anything like that from the audience. Let's keep this quiet, dignified, for the sake of the candidates and also for the sake of your fellow citizens who are trying to hear. I was asked to say that our literature has said that Senator Chris McDaniel would be here, and apparently there was a miscommunication on the scheduling, which caused his campaign to think that the date was not set. As I understand, that's why he ended up not being able to be here. At this time, could you please stand for our invocation? Our invocation is led by the Mayor of Conquerville, Brad Meehan.
Please bow your head. Dear Heavenly Father, tonight we come before you representing ourselves, our cities, our counties, our state, and our nation. Dear Lord, we pray for your blessing over tonight's forum. Not only do we ask for your guidance over our candidates, but also all of our attendees tonight, dear Lord, that the gift of discernment may bring resolution to the June 3rd decisions. And Lord, may your gift of grace be the roadmap to the success of our state and our country. And may your glory always be our priority. And may your Son, Jesus Christ, always be the candidate of choice. Not only in our personal lives, our political lives, but in those who do not know him, dear Lord. Use us as your tool, as your vehicle to reach those who are lost, so they can know the gift that Jesus Christ gave on Calvary when he shed his blood to forgive us of our sins so that we can spend eternity in heaven. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Our moderator for the night is the Honorable Brad Meehan. Mr. Meehan is currently serving as the Mayor of Conquerville, and he's a small business owner of a business here in South Mississippi. I'd like to thank Mayor Meehan for giving his time to help make this forum a success tonight. And at this time, I'd like to turn the forum over to him.
The first phase of our forum tonight will be allowing each of our candidates to give a 4-minute opening statement regarding their platform, their position. I have randomly pulled the name from a hat, and tonight our candidate Ron will be up first with a 4-minute introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Seems like I went first last time, didn't I? Anyway, Mr. Mayor, everybody, sure glad you're here participating in the political process. You know, Plato said that if you're not interested in politics, your destiny is to be ruled by your inferiors. Taking a look at Washington, D.C., I think he was probably right. I'm Ron Benson. I'm a native Mississippian, and I have a birth certificate to prove it. I'm a Christian, veteran, and a conservative with credentials. I am the Tea Party candidate and a strong supporter of Senator Chris McDaniel. I was going to start off tonight with an Obama joke, but I don't want to get audited by the IRS, so I better skip it. You know our country's in trouble. You know it, and I know it. We need to push back against the liberals and the Democrats, but we have to do more than just protest. Protests need to progress into reform. We need to maintain a positive focus on the kind of nation we want to become. Americans know in their hearts that something is wrong. Political and economic insiders are twisting the enormous power of the federal government to their own gain, profiting at the expense of everyone else. Obama speaks out about inequality, but the inequality we're suffering comes from the government. Real inequality comes from trapping children in failing schools for the benefit of teachers' unions and bureaucrats. Common Core and Washington, D.C. bureaucrats have no business in Mississippi classrooms. And I'm sure if Senator Hill was here tonight, she would agree with me. Obamacare by itself is the Godzilla of inequality, robbing working people of their health care and jobs. Many Americans see now why we fought so hard to stop this train wreck. For the past 5 years, Obama has promised an economy for the middle class, but produced nothing but profit for the middleman. Obama's solution to inequality is more government-produced inequality. And sadly, too often, our Republican establishment is a part of this problem. Joining with the Democrats in improving the status of the well-connected it's with the help of critics like me and Chris McDaniel that is starting to change. We're fighting to save the country. And if that means that some Republican candidates that do not share our vision of cutting government and promoting liberty have to be defeated in primaries, then so be it. We find ourselves at a critical turning point. Now, as in 1773, Americans have had it with bloated, out of touch, out of control federal government. And griping and complaining is not a strategy. If all we do is protest, our efforts will be for nothing. We need to move from protest to progress. Together, we can move forward down the road that leads to the kind of government we want. We have a new generation of leaders in Washington, D.C. Men like Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, and Rand Paul. If you choose me to be your representative, I will hold 4 town hall meetings every 2 months with advance notice. I will vote for Trey County of South Carolina for Speaker of the House. Steve King for Majority Leader. I will make sure that every law passed applies to everyone in Congress. No more elite politicians. I got more I want to do.
Thank you, candidate Ron Vincent. Our next candidate with a 4-minute opening statement will be Tavish Kelly.
Hey everyone, my name is Tavish Kelly. I'm really glad to be here tonight. I'm glad you guys all came out. You're the reason that this country has a chance to go back on the right path, because you're actually interested enough to take part in the process, to come out and hopefully to vote on Tuesday, because that's what we need. I was born in Gulfport and raised right here on the Gulf Coast down in Bay St. Louis with Pastor Shan. I went to Mississippi State University. I studied physics, math, and political science. I earned my Eagle Scout when I was 13. I graduated as a valedictorian at Pastor Shan High School at 16. And currently I am enrolled at Ole Miss Law School studying constitutional law. And the Constitution is why I am running for Congress and why I'm here tonight. We are headed in the wrong direction. And the direction we're headed is not just slightly off the path. We're headed in the direction that's resulted in $17.5 trillion of debt on top of our country's head, and $200 trillion of unfunded liabilities on top of that. The American dollar is losing steam internationally. Russia and China, just for the first time, signed a major banking deal that excluded the US dollar in their conversion, therefore removing our status as a reserve currency, which will result in the depreciation of the value of our economy further. We're not respected around the world anymore. We're not free anymore. You know, it takes 30 days in the US to start a new business. In China, it takes 3 days. Are we the free country? Or is China? Who's the communist if you can't start a business in the same amount of time here as you can in China? It's discouraging and it's disgraceful, really, for the people we have in Congress who right now are calling themselves conservatives, because they are not being conservative at the moment. The Republican Party has let us down constantly, and largely due to the actions of John Boehner, Speaker of the House. I'm running because we need a conservative leader from South Mississippi who will go up to Washington, who will say no to the moderates in the Republican Party who want to continue sending us down the path of debt, bankruptcy, and slavery. And I'm the best candidate to do that. I'm the best person in this room to lead conservatives in Washington, to elect a new speaker, a conservative speaker, to follow the guidelines of the Constitution and limit government to within the boundaries of the founders thought necessary. We cannot exceed the boundaries of government or become that which we fought against 200 years ago. I hope you can consider my arguments. I'm going to prove tonight that I have the skills, I have the knowledge, and I have the experience necessary to lead South Mississippi, and lead the nation back to the path of fiscal solvency, limited government, and freedom for everybody here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tavish. Our next candidate with 4 minutes introduction will be Gene Taylor.
Can you hear me if I don't use this thing? Number one, I want to thank y'all for coming out tonight on an otherwise rainy night. I want to thank the Pearl River Republican Party for putting on this great event. I want to thank my wife, Margaret, and so many of my friends that have come out to be with us tonight. A while back, I was elected to Congress. For 21 years, I had the great privilege of representing you. On my very first floor speech, I said, I want to work addressing my colleagues. I want to work with you for a nation that lives within its means. A nation that respects all human life, including the unborn. A nation that honors our veterans and senior citizens, the very people that made this nation great. A nation that protects your Second Amendment rights. And a nation that is not afraid to say, in God we trust. In 21 years, I was true to those principles. In those same 21 years, I held 2 town hall meetings a month, every month, throughout South Mississippi. Answered anywhere from 5 to 15,000 letters, faxes, phone calls, and emails every month. I'll contrast that with the present occupant of this office, who in almost 3.5 years has had 1 town hall meeting. Not one a month, 1. After Hurricane Katrina, I worked with Senator Cochran and Senator Lott to bring an unprecedented amount of federal help to help this district. To replace the Bay St. Louis Bridge, the Biloxi Bridge, water lines, sewer lines, all the things that had to be done. That amounted to $21.7 billion of our fellow citizens' dollars that came down here to help us rebuild. I'm proud of working towards that effort with Senators Lott and Cochran. I'll contrast that again with the present occupant of this office, who, when a storm hit New York and New Jersey, voted against paying their flood insurance claims. Same people that helped us, same people that came down here to volunteer to help us for days, weeks, months at a time, he wouldn't even pay their insurance claims. And one of the things that we know, those of you who are my age, we know, we've already had 3 major hurricanes in my lifetime. There will be another one. South Mississippi's congressman at some point will have to stand on the House floor, look at 434 other people, and say, I need your help. And remind them that I was there to help them when they needed help. South Mississippi's congressman right now can't do that. I did do that, and I will do that again. Lastly, on flood insurance. I fought to make your insurance more affordable after Katrina so people could come back, so that your insurance companies were fair with you. Stephen Palazzo voted for the Bigger Waters Act, which called for unlimited increases in your flood insurance. Now he'll tell you that, well, I limited it to 18% a year and 25% a year for your second home, but that's forever. That's not a limitation. That is against the best interest of South Mississippi. And then lastly, what's the most important thing Congress does? But protect the nation. I made it my highest priority. Stephen Palazzo, for all this talk about firing Nancy Pelosi, couldn't wait to vote with her on August 2nd, 2011 to cut the defense budget by $490 billion. People are wondering why Keesler's going through turmoil, why Camp Shelby's going through turmoil, while the 155th, which did an outstanding job in Iraq, is quite possibly on the chopping block, 3,000 less Mississippi National Guardsmen. because Stephen Pelosi voted for those cuts. I will contrast that with my efforts to restore the promise of lifetime health care for our military retirees, to lead the effort for modern-resistant vehicles in Iraq and Afghanistan to save thousands of lives, and to see to it that every Guardsman reservist is on the military health care system from the day they join to the day they leave. Those are the things I fought for when I was in office then. I'm asking for the opportunity to represent you once again. God bless you.
Thank you, Jim. Guess you figured it out. Tom Carter, our fourth candidate, will be able to give a 4-minute opening statement. Mr. Tom Carter.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank the ladies of Picayune for having this forum. I appreciate that opportunity to come out and speak to you. I'm the guy in this race that's the business guy. I'm the guy that started my own company. I'm the guy that has 27 years of business experience. That's what I bring to this. I bring a unique understanding of what it takes to make things happen. My speech is going to change a little bit because I heard some things that I just don't understand. I just don't understand how the biggest problem we have is not our debt. I don't understand that. We have a lot of problems, a whole lot of problems. We have a 11-term, 21-year congressman that voted 4 times to raise the debt. When he went into office, it was $2.8 trillion. That's what our debt was. When we kicked him out, it was $11.8 trillion. He wears on his back an IOU of $9 trillion. Now he's going to want to come up here at some point and tell you he voted to balance the budget. I'm glad he will. What's important is to understand when you look at a vote in Congress, there's a time stamp on it. You can see when the balanced budget was passed and when that balanced budget had enough votes to pass. I submit to you, this 11-term congressman voted after it had already passed. Don't take my word for it. That's verifiable. You can look at a lot of his votes and look at that. I agree with him on bigger wars. We have a current congressman that has failed us. He's 100% right. But his plan to fix this is to nationalize our insurance. That's wrong. A free market is where this fixes itself. We currently have interstate requirements on insurance. We need to go to interstate commerce. We need to open up our insurance opportunities. Competition breeds lower cost. We need to allow people to step outside of the state and look at other insurance companies to compare against the people we have here. If you have an opportunity to have a captive audience when it comes to finances, then you're going to jack the prices up where you can get them. If you open it up, suddenly somebody's bidding against somebody else and getting the same coverage, everything changes. Folks, I bring something very unique to this. I'm not a career politician. An 11-term congressman is. I'm not the guy that's trying to get a job because I need it. I'm the guy in this race that does not need this job. This job, it needs me. It needs somebody that doesn't care about going up there and being granted a scepter or angry because you got kicked out of office. Things are different now. They need to be different. Our country is broke. We talk about $17.5 trillion. That's where I started this speech. At what point are we broke, guys? Who in this room can write $17.5 trillion in long form? But if you can't write it, you don't care about it. If you don't care about it, you don't understand it. If you don't understand it, you won't do anything about it. Here's the number you can understand. $53,000. You can see that too. You can see the things you bought, things you financed. $53,000 is how much money each one of you will owe May 31st. That's dead. The jokes and levity that comedians make, it's not funny anymore. I'm Tom Carter. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your introductions. I think there's no reason why we shouldn't give them a round of applause for their performance. So each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer their question. The question in which I'll read from the podium. Gentlemen, I will also leave this question here so that you can make reference to it if you should need it. For informational purposes, since Mr. Ron Vincent was first in his 4-minute introduction, I removed his name from the hat so that he will not have to go first again. First question for tonight's forum, we'll be asking each candidate to give an example of a policy you would initiate, abolish, or change if elected, and how it can be accomplished. Our first candidate, Mr. Tavish Kelly.
Well, this is hard. There's so many things that are wrong with this country right now. I'm a gun store owner. I own Kelly Firearms right down here in Nicholson. I'm your neighbor, and the Second Amendment is very, very important to me. So obviously I'm not opposed to Obamacare. So let's just get that out of the way. But the first thing I want to introduce when I get to Congress, the first bill would remove suppressed weapons and short barrel weapons from NFA restrictions. This is an important rule because right now, if you want to buy a rifle, with a 15.5-inch barrel, you can't do it. You got to ask the governor for permission, wait 9 months, and then pay them $200. Pay the federal government $200 on top of whatever the rifle costs. Now, if you want a 16-inch barrel rifle, you can walk out of the store with it that day. Does that seem like a reasonable policy to anybody in here? It doesn't to me. It's an unconstitutional infringement on our right to keep and bear arms. It's the first thing I want to remove, and I can get it done. For one, this is a common sense repeal of a law that shouldn't exist in the first place. It will not take too much support. We're expecting to get a Senate majority, actually. The Republicans are in the Senate this year, 2014. So we'll have the support there. In the House, what it really comes down to is whether or not the Speaker wants to bring it to the floor. John Boehner, he might not want to bring it to the floor. And that's, again, why I'm going to work to replace John Boehner. And I'm going to do that by forming a conservative coalition of Republicans, constitutional conservatives in the House. We're going to vote for people other than John Boehner. And we're going to do that. In 2013, we came 6 votes away from blocking John Boehner as Speaker. 6 votes. I can get those 6 votes in. Unfortunately, Congressman Palazzo was one of the votes for John Boehner. Unfortunately, Congressman Taylor, he was realized that I said he'll vote for whoever the Republican caucus nominates, which is going to be John Boehner. But the Second Amendment is the most important right that we have, preserved by the Constitution, not given, preserved. And I'm going to fight for you guys. I'm going to fight for everybody down here to have the full, unabridged right to defend themselves in the means that they deem necessary and proper. All right? I'm going to fight for you guys to do that. I'm not going to support any gun control measures or fund the ATF, anything that would take guns out of your hands, unlike, unfortunately, Congressman Taylor, who voted for gun control twice while he was in office in the 90s. So, obviously, I want to hear Obamacare, but the right to keep and bear arms, the right to defend yourself is the most important thing we have. I'm going to fight tooth and nail to preserve it for you guys. Thanks.
Thank you, candidate. Thanks, brother. Our next candidate, same question. Give an example of a policy you would initiate, abolish, or change if elected, and how it can be accomplished. Our next candidate, Gene Taylor.
This one is remarkably simple. I hope you remember that when I was in Congress, I voted against Obamacare. I pointed out at that time that our nation couldn't afford it, that we already had made more promises for things like Social Security, Veterans Health Care, Medicare, and Medicaid. We'd already made more promises than we could keep at that time, and we could not afford to make more promises. I'm very proud of having led the effort to fulfill the promise of lifetime health care for our military retirees. They earned it. They were promised that, they earned it. I'm very proud to have led the effort to see to it that every guard, every drilling guardsman and reservist was in the military health care system. Prior to that, it was just immediately before and after a deployment. They earned it. At some given times during the Iraq War, half the people there were guardsmen and reservists. I think health care for our senior citizens was promised to them through Medicare. We have to keep that promise. It's going to be an expensive promise, but we have to keep it. But the nation needs to quit making promises that they can't afford to keep. That's why I voted against Obamacare. How would you change it? That bill, no exaggeration, was about this thick of single-spaced pages. There are provisions in there that no one can defend. The mistake that Stephen Palazzo and others have made is trying to repeal the whole package. Take out the most egregious parts a bit at a time, parade them out there, no one can defend them, and take it apart one piece at a time. What do I want to keep? I do want to let those parents who wish to keep their kids on their insurance through age 26 or 27, I'd like to let them do that. I would have liked to have done that. I'd like to help people who have pre-existing conditions. One of my daughters as a college kid got bit by a deer tick. She developed something called Lyme disease. It was a pre-existing condition. When she got old enough to go buy her own insurance, she could not buy it. So we lived through that, and I don't want anyone else to have to live through that. I do want to help people who have pre-existing conditions have access to health care. But the Obamacare package, as it passed the House and as it passed the Senate, became law. I voted against. I would vote to repeal as soon as I get up there. But by retaining some of the provisions, like I talked about, helping those parents who want to keep their kids on their insurance, doing what we can to help people who are in an honest-to-goodness jam because of pre-existing conditions, finding a way to get them insurance.
Our next candidate is Tom Carter. Mr. Carter, would you like the question read again?
No, I think I'm ready. Once again, I'm the business guy. The question here, in my opinion, is regulation. We have quite a few agencies that are unconstitutional. If you haven't heard that, which I think you may have already heard it from Tavish, we have quite a few. They're regulatory agencies, and all they do is issue regulations on you that is not approved by the legislature. So the policies that I would change would be deregulated. We can deregulate, we increase productivity, we can increase opportunities, we can increase jobs, we can increase our revenues. That actually happened under President Reagan. Now something else I want to bring up. I got an 11-term congressman that's walking around saying that he's 100% pro-life. 100%. I congratulate him on that. However, let's look at his votes. Now, I really don't care who he voted for at all. I've heard my incumbent congressman beat him to death while we kicked him out last time. And now this time we started again. I don't care. But I do care about one thing. I care about that vote matters. He voted for Nancy Pelosi. Voted for her twice.
Now, first off, there's not a Republican in this room, not one, that would vote for Nancy Pelosi. I issued a challenge to this young man and asked him to apologize as a Republican, be considered a Republican, that he voted for Nancy. Y'all heard that apology? You haven't. The problem is Nancy Pelosi put legislation forward that was pro-choice. To his defense, he voted against it. But he voted for the person that brought it forward. Ladies and gentlemen, that matters. It's not 100% anymore. Thank you. My name's Tom Clark.
For good measure, I'm going to read the question once more for our final candidate. Give us an example of a policy you would initiate, abolish, change, if elected, and how can you get that accomplished?
Well, thanks again, Mr. Mayor. Golly, Gene, I thought Palazzo was the incumbent. Maybe I'm confused. But the one thing I'm not confused about is what policy I would lead off getting rid of, and that's Obamacare. That needs to go away. One of the reasons that's such a strong deal with me, I spent a lot of time in Eastern Europe, and I have seen socialized medicine. If you think it's bad now, you ain't seen nothing yet. We need to get rid of Obamacare. We don't need to replace it. We don't need to fix it. We just need to destroy it. Healthcare needs to be between a doctor and his patient. Everybody else needs to just butt out. The reason the healthcare costs are going up and up and up is because of all of the lawyers and the government getting involved with their mandate and. They just need to go away. It's going to be a catastrophe. Obamacare is a perfect example of what happens when the government tries to fix something that's not broke. That's what happened with Obamacare. Now they've gotten in the middle of it, and now it isn't working. The only reason we can survive right now is because Obama, with all of his executive orders, has postponed the payment, but it's coming. You think I'm blowing smoke here? Folks, I have seen it. You don't know. Take a look at what's happening at the VA. The mistreatment that the veterans are suffering under this administration. That's a perfect example of the government running the healthcare system. And that's what happens. The problem with the VA are new policies put in place by the Obama administration. And that's wrong. None of the promises that we were given about Obamacare have been kept. It's neither affordable, nor do they care. And you ain't seen nothing yet. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Thank you so much.
Thank you, candidate Ron Benson. I would like to move to our second question of the evening. Again, the question will be at the podium if any of our candidates would like to review the question. And the question is, please tell us one thing you would do as a member of Congress to enable states to defend and regain rights traditionally and constitutionally reserved to the states, while limiting the ability of the federal government to usurp these rights. Our first candidate, Mr. Tom Carter.
Thank you. This comes back to the 10th Amendment. That's what we're talking about. First thing I would do is limit our outreaching of our federal government. Find a way to change the way the federal government is taxing our states. The taxes that we're under and the way we are taxed leads to an outrageous debt that leads to crushing our businesses. Obamacare, I call it Obama kill, is killing jobs. It's killing and crushing opportunity. It's killing people. That's because our Supreme Court ruled that taxation then was legal. I think they're wrong. I think most Americans think they're wrong. We've got to find a way to eliminate and downsize our government, something that was began under Reagan. It's what Reagan did. It's what we need to do. Smaller government. Government is the problem. I think that's a quote from Ronald Reagan. That's what we have to fight for. And everything we do is making it small. The ways of doing that is taking away 2.6 million people. We got the largest employer. When we had the government shutdown, one of the things that was said is 2.6 million people are going to be out of work. Oh, that's horrible. That's deplorable on multiple fronts. One being that we have a federal government that is the largest single employer. Regulation has gotten out of hand. It's grown beyond its known value. At the end of the day, the states, you people, us, me, we know how to govern ourselves. One of the things about being an entrepreneur, it's different. So nobody's going to tell me what to do. I'm going to do it because I see the way. I see the path. And that's how I'm going to go. I'm going to find a way to make it small. We'll find a way to eliminate regulation. We'll find a way to allow our competition to grow. And that's what I'll do. By the way, you mentioned about Obamacare. And our 11-term congressman did vote against it. Again, let's talk about IT for a minute. Every vote has a timestamp. It's time to understand he voted after it was passed. Then he voted no. Folks, that matters. That matters a lot. Our current congressman has put 50 bills or voted 50 times to repeal Obamacare. He doesn't get a pass. 50 times. I think that's what he said. Gene could probably tell you the best what he said. At the end of the day, that's ineffective governing. If you can't get rid of it, quit voting on it. Quit wasting my time. Do something to kill it. Thank you. My name is Tom Clark.
Thank you, candidate Carter. Our second candidate will be Tavish Kelly.
This is almost the same as the first question for me. The best way in order to reserve the state, the rights to the states, the rights and powers that are not given to the federal government under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which is where it's written. I've got it right here if anybody wants to read it afterwards. The best way to defend the state's powers and their rights in order to have these powers is to defund, basically, all of the organizations, the regulatory agencies, like Tom said, that are enforcing these unconstitutional laws. So it's hard to get a bill passed in Congress. That's on purpose. The government, the federal government, founding fathers wanted it to be like that in the federal government. They wanted it to be very, very hard for us to actually pass bills. However, it's very easy to shut down sections of the government, and then you do that essentially by blocking budgets. You just vote no to unbalanced budgets. You vote no to unconstitutional budgets. And the person who has the most power in this process is the Speaker of the House. Most people don't know, but the Speaker is actually the most powerful person in the country because he alone has the power to shut down the entire federal government whenever he wants to. If we can get the Speaker on our side, we can get a constitutional conservative in that speakership seat, we will be the ones in control of the budget. We will have the power to fund or defund agencies as we want. Because the Senate can't do anything about that if the House isn't funding them. So even if we don't get a Republican majority in the Senate, that's why I will put together a coalition to replace John Boehner as Speaker and elect a more conservative Speaker, somebody who will champion our bills, who will say no to unconstitutional bills, and who will say no to unbalanced budgets. Additionally, each year I will propose myself 2 balanced budgets. One will be balanced at current tax rates, the other will be balanced at a 10% flat tax, which I think is preferential for this economy. If we can just get that Speaker replaced, we're going to be able to change so much in this country. That is the key to turning this country around. I hope everybody understands that, and I hope you all can join me in the fight for that. So please consider who you would like to be Speaker, and please consider which of us is going to be the one to vote for the right speaker. Thanks.
Thank you, Tavish. I will call our next candidate, Ron Vincent.
Thank you. What we really have here is an out-of-control government. The government is just plain out of control. And nullification is definitely in order. But one of the reasons that the government is out of control is because nobody in our Republican establishment is pushing back against Obama. We need somebody to stand up and push back. We have the duty. In our system, we have a system of checks and balances. But the Obama administration is just totally out of control. We have the power to fix it in the U.S. House. Our current congressman sometimes says, well, we only have 1/2 or 1/3 of the government. We can't do anything. Pocketbook. We control the most important body in all of Washington, D.C., and that's the U.S. House. The reason the House is so powerful is because they control the money. I really get discouraged when I hear Boehner stand up and say, I can't negotiate with Obama. What do you mean? You're in charge of all the money, and you can't negotiate with Obama? This is nuts. We definitely need to replace the Speaker of the House. And let us not forget the lesson that we Republicans should have learned from the 109th Congress. And let me refresh your memory. The 109th Congress, like the 108th before it, we control the House, we control the Senate, and George Bush was president. Life was good if you were a Republican. Or was it? We had the same problems then we have now, with the exception of unemployment. We had no security on the southern border. We had no energy policy. We had an economy in ruins. The dollar was suffering. We had the same problems as we have now. But the 109th Congress was the do-nothing Congress. They did nothing. And then in 2006, was the biggest disaster in my memory. We lost control of the House and Senate in 2006 in an election that brought us Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid and ultimately Obama and Obamacare. That needs to not happen again. The Republicans need to push back and do what the voters sent them up there to do, and that's fix the problems that we have in this country. Thank you.
And our final candidate for the second question, Gene Taylor. Gene, as a courtesy, would you like the question?
Would you please, man?
Yes, absolutely. Question. Tell us one thing you would do as a member of Congress to enable states to defend and regain rights traditionally and constitutionally reserved to the states, while limiting the ability of the federal government to usurp these rights.
Mayor, thank you for repeating that. And I think most of us would agree the greatest example of federal overreach, where the federal government puts up very little money that makes the rules, is in education. About 90% of all funds spent in Mississippi on education are locally generated. Your ad valorem taxes pay for the buildings, your sales taxes pay for the classroom teacher. Only about 10% of the educational funding in Mississippi comes from Washington. And yet Washington, with things like No Child Left Behind, is making the rules. Now, I will admit to making a mistake in letting George Bush talk me into vote for that. His wife was a teacher. It seemed like the right thing to do at the time. But I think from all of us who know educators know that that had a lot of repercussions that the educators do not like, that need to go away. And so I think that is the perfect example, where if the majority of the funds are coming from local government, local citizens, then the locals should make the calls on education, not the federal government that's only providing 10% of those funds.
Thank you, candidate Gene Taylor. Our final question for this evening. Candidates, would you support the repeal of the 17th Amendment to the Constitution, which would the choosing of senators to the various state legislatures as the Constitution originally required? Why or why not? Our first candidate, Gene Taylor.
I believe very strongly that one of the great things about our country is one man, one vote. One person, one vote. In my lifetime, because of the enormous price that 18, 19, and 20-year-olds were paying with their lives and limbs in Vietnam, that right was expanded to 18-year-olds because if you think about the terrible irony, we had kids who were being blown to pieces who were not eligible to vote. I think the right to choose the United States Senator should belong to you, ma'am, to you, sir. I think it should belong to all of us rather than just a handful of elected representatives in Jackson. And I would not vote to change the laws it is now. I think the popular vote is the way it should go. And I intend to exercise my right next Tuesday to choose a United States Senator. I want to continue to give you the right next Tuesday to do so. I would not want to return that back to the state legislature.
Thank you, Gene. Our next candidate, Mr. Ron Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to have to disagree with you, Gene, on this one. I think that we had an earlier question about why we had lost so much power, as the states lost so much power. And I think the 17th Amendment to direct elections for the senators is the reason, because the states lost all control that they had in the federal government when they gave up their right to choose the senators. They have no control in the Senate. And that caused us a really, really big problem. It's still causing us a problem today. So I'm not in favor of direct voting for it. I think the states should have some more power in electing the senators like they did before. And I personally feel that we should repeal the 17th Amendment and go back to the way it was.
Thank you, candidate Ron Vincent. Our next candidate for our third question, candidate Tavish Kelly.
Well, actually, I agree with Ron for some similar reasons, but since we got 3 minutes, I'm going to explain some history to you guys. The 17th Amendment was passed in 1913 by a group of socialists, progressives in the Democratic Party, largely spearheaded by Woodrow Wilson and similar people like that. The same people who instituted the income tax, the Federal Reserve, and largely tanked this country in a lot of ways back in the early 20th century. Ron's correct in saying that the state selection of senators was one of the checks and balances that the founders put into the Constitution to make sure that the federal government was never too much more powerful than the states. When you take that away, you essentially make the Senate the same as the House, because they're elected in the same manner, and you eliminate the spirit of bicameralism, or two-house representation that was baked into our Constitution at the inset. Now, there's other reasons that the division between Senate and House has blurred over the years. Part of that is because back in the early 20th century, the House decided to pass a law saying that no new House members would be added from this time. Before that, they would add some House members as the population grew to make sure that there weren't too many people represented by one House member. So originally, the founders thought that 30,000 to 1 was a good idea. By that ratio today, we would have 10 times as many representatives. Right now, we have 300,000 to 1 ratio. So I would represent 300,000 Americans, which is larger than the population of most states at the time this country was founded. We would have about 4,500 House members. That might be too many, but I think you might see the reason why we might want some more House members. And then the Senate makes more sense as a smaller, calmer body selected by the states which can they have a sort of veto power almost, the states would, to be able to stop the House from going out of control and passing things like Obamacare, which we probably would have never gotten if the states were the ones appointing senators today. It should also be noted that before the 17th Amendment was passed, there were states that had the direct election of senators, and Mississippi would have that option. Because what the Constitution says is that the states shall determine, the state legislatures shall determine the senators for each state. But it was allowed for the state legislatures to determine which senators would represent each state through direct elections. So we would have both options open to us. The 17th Amendment just cuts one option off and prevents us from having that more sober, more tempered, reasonable Senate that we once had in the United States.
Thank you, candidate Tavish Kelly. Our final candidate for our final question for this evening will be candidate Tom Carter.
Well, I'm the guy of competition, the guy of choice. Although I do agree that the changing of it was at a time, and it wasn't original. The reason we changed it was, can you imagine what would happen today in the appointment of a U.S. Senator when you look at what happens when a Senate seat comes open? We just had that happen. We just had corruption, breeding corruption. Politics is a dirty business. Politics is about power and somebody wanting to get it. I would take the choice away. I would not agree that we need to go back. I understand what my colleague has said, but choice is the key to it all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidate Carter. I would also like to let you know, as a reminder, that was our final question. What we're going to do next is we're going to allow each candidate a closing remark for 2 minutes. Our first candidate with closing remarks will be candidate Ron Vincent.
Well, 2 minutes, that's not much to sum up what we have said here tonight, so I'll kind of make it brief. I don't know about you, but I get tired of being lied to by our elected officials. Our President Obama won the Liar of the Year award last year. You know, that's a shame and disgrace, isn't it? But our current congressman has some problems in this area too. Just before I left, I got this mailer from our current congressman, and where he talks about his service in the military twice. And if you're going to bring the issue up, let's talk about the whole thing. I certainly would give you a lot of attaboys for anybody who volunteers to serve in the military. You get a lot of attaboy from me. Congressman Palazzo refused to deploy with his unit to Iraq. And you get an all shucks for that. And you know the rule, one all shucks wipes out all your attaboys. And Congressman Taylor went to visit Congressman Palazzo's unit in Iraq, and he wasn't there, was he? The other thing that's kind of surprising here, Stephen's character speaks for itself. A couple of weeks ago, all of us up here were in Jackson County, in Goche, for the Jackson County Republican Movement. And our congressman didn't stay around for questions, but he did have a really smooth monologue that he delivered. It was quite stunning because most of it had no basis in fact. One of the things he said was that, and he took credit for this, we have reduced spending for the last 4 years, every year in a row. Look, that's just plain wrong. Spending in the last 4 years has increased a minimum of 8% per year. And our congressman is responsible for that. He voted for the continuing resolutions, he voted for the debt ceiling increases, and he gets no credit for cutting spending. And I didn't go through all the things the last time that I wanted to do. One more thing I want to do is, one thing I would do if you elect me to be your congressman, I would have a sign on my desk that's facing me that says, "Are you working for the people in South Mississippi?" And I'll read that every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidate Ron Vincent. Our next candidate with closing remarks will be Tom Carter.
Thank you very much. Insanity. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. That's what insanity is. I call this race, because of our two ex-congressmen and current congressmen, insanity. Somebody wants to do something again, and they've come up here and told you things that they voted for or somebody else voted for or what they might have done or didn't do. At the end of the day, guys, you're going to get the same thing. In business, you reinvent yourself every 10 years. You do that on purpose, so you can have a different product, a different service that you can offer the people. Sometimes you have to change that product, very so slightly. Sometimes it's just paint, red to blue, blue to red. That's what you have to do to make yourself new. That's what we have in the congressman is trying to come back from a beating he took. At the end of the day, don't be fooled. He has given no ideas on tax reform. He's given no ideas on new jobs. Not just a job, but a quality job. He's given no ideas on bigger waters other than to nationalize it. Is that really what we need, bigger government? That's what the Democratic Party does. Guys, at the end of the day, there is a dichotomy between our two congressmen and the other gentleman sitting up here, including myself. We bring something new, something fresh. Ideas for a new tax plan. Ideas for a new jobs plan. Ideas for constitutional movements. Ideas. That's what you get when you walk away from insanity. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate each and every one of you coming tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you listening tonight. If I said anything to offend you, don't be offended by me. I didn't make those votes. I didn't tell you something that wasn't true. Go check it for yourself. Again, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tom Carter. I need your vote on June 3rd to be your next congressman. Have a good evening.
Thank you, candidate Tom Carter. Our next candidate with closing remarks will be candidate Tavish Kelly.
Well, I want to thank the Pearl River County Republicans and the Republican women of Greater Picayune for hosting this event. I love being able to talk to people. I hope we can keep doing it for a few minutes after the event too out here. But you know, on Tuesday we've got a real chance to change something. We've got a chance to make this a pivotal moment in U.S. history. We've got a chance to say no to two flawed incumbents, two incumbents full of votes for unbalanced budgets, full of votes to fund unconstitutional agency, full of votes to send our soldiers overseas to die in wars that do not help American citizens. We've lost over 4,000 people around the world due to votes by Congressman Taylor and votes by Congressman Stephen Palazzo, and I won't stand for it, okay? I have friends who are veterans, I have family members who are veterans, and they deserve more respect than that. They shouldn't die for another country. We've got a chance to change all of this. We've got a chance to say no to two people who have voted for unconstitutional NSA spying on us, who have voted for the president to have the power to indefinitely detain us in military prisons or even assassinate American citizens. These are ridiculous things that have been voted for, that have been endorsed by two of the people in this election. These are not the kind of things that you look at and then give them a pat on the back and say, head back up there to Washington and do a good job like you've been doing, because they haven't been. They've been selling us down the river they've been sending us to die at the hands of enemies overseas, and they've in general not been supporting the Constitution and not supporting the spirit of liberty upon which this country was founded and for which our ancestors died. It's a serious matter, and we need to take it into our hands to change it. When you go home on Tuesday after voting, I want you to be able to tell your family, tell your children, tell your grandchildren, I voted to change this country. I voted to fix what's wrong with this country. Because do you want to go home and say, I voted to do the same thing we've been doing? I voted to leave it exactly the same? I don't. My name is Tavish Kelly, and I hope you can vote for me on June 3rd, because we can do this. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Tavish Kelly. Our final candidate to closing remarks this evening will be candidate Gene Taylor.
100 days ago, my campaign did not have one yard sign. 100 days ago, my campaign did not have one bumper sticker. 100 days ago, there wasn't one penny in my campaign account. As you can hear from some of the candidates tonight, 100 days later, I'm the clear front runner. And why is that? I think it's pretty simple. Not because of me, but because the people of South Mississippi have chosen me to represent them. The people of South Mississippi, by the hundreds, asked me to run, and now by the thousands have volunteered to help in this campaign. I think there's a reason for that. And I think it starts with, I was there for you when you needed some help. Whether it's Hurricane Katrina, whether it was your son or daughter in Iraq or Afghanistan not getting the equipment they needed, whether it was your uncle, the veteran, whether it was your cousin who needed some help with their Medicaid. For 21 years, I put together an excellent staff that when you called, we answered. We were there for you. I'm asking the people of South Mississippi on June the 3rd to be there for me. So that I can put together, once again, a great staff to help you. That I can look out for the troops. That I can undo these stupid defense cuts that Palazzo has voted for, undo these ridiculous flood insurance increases, and yes, once again build friendships with our other congressmen so that when disaster strikes again, we can look in with a clear eye and say, I was there for you. I need you to be there for me, for South Mississippi. If being pro-life means you're a Republican, then I'm a Republican. If being for a balanced budget means you're a Republican, then I'm a Republican. If being for a strong national defense means you're a Republican, then I'm a Republican. If being clear in saying, in God we trust, makes you a Republican, then I'm a Republican. I'm asking for your vote on June 3rd. I feel like I have earned your vote, and I will work every day to be grateful for that vote and worthy of it. God bless you.
Thank you, candidate Gene Taylor. Just a quick announcement. I think that we owe each of these candidates a round of applause this evening as a courtesy and for caring about our country as to seek this office. I'm now going to turn it back over to Rand for closing remarks.
I hope you all stick around for a few minutes and visit at the candidates' tables in the back. I do want to thank everyone for coming tonight, especially want to thank the candidates for being able to be here. Special thanks to our moderator, Mayor Nikes, for taking time with his family to come do this for us. And I also want to be sure to thank the members of the Greater Picayune Republican Women and the Herbert County Executive Committee, Republican Executive Committee for the work they did to put in this on. Thank you and be safe going home. Have a good night.